DOM events allow event-driven programming languages like JavaScript, Script, ECMAScript, VBScript and Java to register various event handlers listeners on the element nodes inside a DOM tree, for example HTML, XHTML, XUL and SVG documents. Historically, like DOM, the event models used by various web browsers had some significant differences. This caused compatibility problems. To combat this, the event model was standardized by the W3C in DOM Level 2. Events, HTML events, common W3C events. There is a huge collection of events that can be generated by most element nodes: mouse events, keyboard events, HTML frame object events, HTML form events, user interface events, mutation events, progress events. Note that the event classification above is not exactly the same as W3C's classification. Note that the events whose names start with a -oed or -euro are currently not well supported, and for this and other performance reasons are deprecated by the W3C in DOM Level 3. Mozilla and Opera support DOM modified, DOM inserted, DOM removed and DOM character data modified. Chrome and Safari support these events, except for DOM modified. Touch events. Web browsers running on touch-enabled devices, such as Apple's iOS and Google's Android, generate additional events. In the W3C draft recommendation, a touch event delivers a touch list of touch locations, the modifier keys that were active, a touch list of touch locations within the targeted DOM element, and a touch list of touch locations that have changed since the previous touch event. Apple didn't join this working group, and delayed W3C recommendation of its touch events specification by disclosing patents late in the recommendation process. Pointer events. Web browsers on devices with various types of input devices including mouse, touch panel, and pen may generate integrated input events. Users can see what type of input device is pressed, what button is pressed on that device, and how strongly the button is pressed when it comes to a stylus pen. As of October 2013, this event is only supported by Internet Explorer 10 and 11. Indie UI events, not yet really implemented. The Indie UI working groups want to help web application developers to be able to support standard user interaction events without having to handle different platform-specific technical events that could match with it. Scripting usable interfaces can be difficult, especially when one considers that user interface design patterns differ across software platforms, hardware, and locales, and that those interactions can be further customized based on personal preference. Individuals are accustomed to the way the interface works on their own system, and their preferred interface frequently differs from that of the web application author's preferred interface. For example, web application authors, wishing to intercept a user's intent to undo the last action, need to listen for all the following events: Ctrl+Z on Windows and Linux, Command+Z on Mac OS X, shake events on some mobile devices. It would be simpler to listen for a single, normalized request to undo the previous action. Microsoft-specific events. Two major types of events are added by Microsoft, and in some cases can only be used in Internet Explorer. Others have been implemented as de facto standards by other browsers. Clipboard events, data binding events. Note that Mozilla, Safari and Opera also support redirect-to-change event for the XML HTTP request object. Mozilla also supports the before a load event using traditional event registration method. Mozilla and Safari also support context menu, but Internet Explorer for the Mac does not. Note that Firefox 6 and later support before reprint and afterprint events. XUL events. In addition to the common W3C events, Mozilla defined a set of events that work only with XUL elements. Other events. For Mozilla and Opera 9, there are also undocumented events known as DOM content loaded, and dump frame content loaded, which fire when the DOM content is loaded. These are different from load as they fire before the loading of related files. However, DOM content loaded has been added to the HTML5 draft specification. The DOM content loaded event was also implemented in the WebKit rendering engine build 500+. This correlates to all versions of Google Chrome and Safari 3.1+. DOM content loaded is also implemented in Internet Explorer 9. Opera 9 also supports the Web Forms 2.0 events DOM control value changed, invalid, form input, and form change. Event flow: consider the situation when there are two elements nested together. Both of event handlers registered on the same event type, say click. When the user clicks on the inner element, there are two possible ways to handle it: trigger the elements from outer to inner. This model is implemented in Netscape Navigator. Trigger the elements from inner to outer. This model is implemented in Internet Explorer and other browsers. W3C takes a middle position in this struggle. Events are first captured until it reaches the target element, and then bubbled up. During the event flow, an event can be responded to at any element in the path in either phase by causing an action, and/or by stopping the event for W3C conforming browsers and command event cancel bubble equals true for Internet Explorer, and/or by cancelling the default action for the event. Event object: the event object provides a lot of information about a particular event, including information about target element, key pressed, mouse button pressed, mouse position, etc. Unfortunately, there are very serious browser incompatibilities in this area. Hence only the W3C event object is discussed in this article. Event handling models, DOM level 0. This event handling model was introduced by Netscape Navigator, and remains the most cross-browser model as of 2005. There are two model types, inline model and traditional model. Inline model: in the inline model, event handlers are added as attributes of elements. In the example below, an alert dialog box with the message "Hey Joe" appears after the hyperlink is clicked. The default click action is cancelled by returning false in the event handler. One common misconception with the inline model is the belief that it allows the registration of event handlers with custom arguments, for example name in the trigger alert function. While it may seem like that is the case in the example above, what is really happening is that the JavaScript engine of the browser creates an anonymous function containing the statements in the onClick attribute. The onClick handler of the element would be bound to the following anonymous function. This limitation of the JavaScript event model is usually overcome by assigning attributes to the function object of the event handler or by using closures. Traditional model: in the traditional model, event handlers can be added/removed by scripts. Like the inline model, each event can only have one event handler registered. The event is added by assigning the handler name to the event property of the element object. To remove an event handler, simply set the property to null. To add parameters, inner functions preserve their scope. DOM level 2: the W3C designed a more flexible event handling model in DOM level 2. Some useful things to know are: to prevent an event from bubbling, developers must call the stop propagation method of the event object. To prevent the default action of the event to be called, developers must call the prevent default method of the event object. The main difference from the traditional model is that multiple event handlers can be registered for the same event. The use capture option can also be used to specify that the handler should be called in the capture phase instead of the bubbling phase. This model is supported by Mozilla, Opera, Safari, Chrome and Conqueror. A rewrite of the example used in the traditional model. Microsoft-specific model: Microsoft does not follow the W3C model up until Internet Explorer 8, as its own model was created prior to the ratification of the W3C standard. Internet Explorer 9 follows DOM level 3 events, and Internet Explorer 11 deletes its support for Microsoft-specific model. Some useful things to know are: to prevent an event bubbling, developers must set the event's cancel bubble property. To prevent the default action of the event to be called, developers must set the event's return value property. For this keyword refers to the global window object. Again, this model differs from the traditional model in that multiple event handlers can be registered for the same event. However, the use capture option cannot be used to specify that the handler should be called in the capture phase. This model is supported by Microsoft Internet Explorer and Trident-based browsers. a rewrite of the example used in the old Microsoft-specific model. References: Untitled, Harvey Internet and World Wide Web, How to Program. ISBN 0-13-030897-8, the Mozilla Organization DOM event reference. Retrieved August 25, 2009. Quirks mode. Event compatibility tables. Retrieved November 27, 2008. http www.sitepencom200810, external links, Document Object Model Level 2 Events Specification, Document Object Model Level 3 Events Working Draft, DOM4, Events, UI Events Working Draft, Pointer Events W3C Candidate Recommendation, MSDN Pointer Event, JS Fiddle for Event Bubbling and Capturing, References.